The movie kicks off with a sweeping view of a snowy city. Casey Bell, our main character, jogs through an empty park. Exhausted, she stops to catch her breath and spots an odd object on the path. Getting closer, she realizes it's a child's glove. Casey picks it up, turns around, and sees a little boy standing behind her. She freaks out as the boy transforms into a dog wearing a human mask. Casey chases after it, but only finds the mask. Nearby, in the dirt, she sees an embryo that suddenly opens its piercing blue eyes. That evening, Casey heads to her babysitting job at the neighbor's and chats with her friend. She's clueless about what her creepy dream could mean. Romy, who's into mysticism, says a dog is a messenger from the other side. Casey mentions that her babysitting gig is a breeze tonight. When she arrived, one kid was already asleep, and the other dozed off quickly after a bedtime story. Their chat is interrupted by a weird noise from upstairs. Through the baby monitor, Casey hears the older boy, Maddie, asking someone to look into a mirror. She heads upstairs to check on Maddie. From the staircase, she hears an eerie sound coming from the kids' room. Casey steps inside and sees Maddie leaning over his brother's crib, holding a mirror. When she calls out to him, he smacks her with the mirror and says, "Jumbie wants to be born now." Maddie's parents come home and apologize for the incident. They suggest Casey see an eye doctor to check her injured eye. As she steps outside, she spots that same blue glove on the ground again. Back home, Casey tells her dad she's going to bed. She washes her face, but soon returns to the bathroom, staring into the mirror. Before bed, she glances at a photo of her and her mom, then closes her eyes. The cabinet behind the mirror rattles and shakes loudly. In the morning, Casey starts making breakfast and jumps when she finds insects inside an egg. Looking out the window, she sees Maddie standing outside her house. Later, Casey hangs out with her friends and boyfriend. Mark brushes off the boy's behavior, but Romy warns that a newborn shouldn't see their reflection in a mirror before their first birthday. It's a bad omen, and the child might not survive. Casey doesn't buy it and heads to a lecture, but during class, her eye starts throbbing. On the chalkboard and in her notebook, she sees the phrase, "Jumbie wants to be born." In the locker room, Romy notices something's off with Casey's eye. Casey visits an eye doctor and learns she's developed heterochromia. The doctor explains it's common in twins or can result from trauma. Later, while walking with Mark, Casey spots the boy from her dream among the crowd. She invites Mark to stay over since her dad's away. After a night together, Casey admits she's terrified of dying, as all her thoughts would vanish. Casey doesn't believe in an afterlife. Feeling no connection to her mom, who abandoned them, she confesses she resented her mom for years. Then she heads to the bathroom to check her eye. She hears a noise in the cabinet and opens it. Instead of shelves, Casey sees the terrifying boy from her dream. Mark rushes in, but when he opens the mirror, there's nothing unusual. The next day, Casey goes for a jog and notices a commotion at her neighbor's house. A woman tells her the couple lost their younger child. Casey visits the eye doctor again and learns her heterochromia might be caused by chimerism, often seen in twins. At her dad's workplace, Casey uncovers a shocking truth. Her mom was pregnant with twins, but her brother suffocated due to her umbilical cord. His nickname was Jumbie. Back home, Casey digs through her mom's things and finds a photo of the boy from her dreams and a newspaper with the name Sophie Cosma circled. She decides to visit Sophie and learns the woman is in a nursing home. Sophie warmly greets Casey until she sees the boy's photo. Then she turns hostile and kicks her out. Casey starts to suspect an evil spirit of an unborn child is haunting her. Among her mom's belongings, she finds a strange videotape showing the hospital room where her mother took her own life. Mark urges Casey not to be superstitious and takes her to a club to unwind. In the dancing crowd, Casey spots the creepy boy again and heads to the bathroom to splash water on her face. She feels ill and goes into a stall, but she's not alone. Bugs crawl out from under the door. Casey screams, trapped, and sees her mom. Mark and Romy burst in, calming her and assuring her she's safe. Back home, Casey talks to Romy, terrified the spirit will strike again. Romy suggests putting scissors under her pillow, but that night, Casey dreams of the boy ripping open her stomach. Casey wakes to a phone call. Sophie apologizes for her behavior at the nursing home and asks Casey to visit. Casey realizes Sophie is her grandmother. Sophie confirms it and urges her to come quickly. She reveals that the boy in the reflections is her twin brother, Barto. Sophie and Bartow were in Auschwitz, selected by Dr. Josef Mengele, who experimented on twins. He was obsessed with turning brown eyes blue. Some of his injections caused blindness or death. Bartow died but returned 2 days later. Sophie insists it wasn't her brother anymore. She's certain a Dybbuk, a Jewish malevolent spirit, possessed him, a restless soul living in others' bodies. Sophie realized Bartow was possessed and had to destroy him. She explains that the Dybbuk has haunted their family ever since, targeting Casey's brother before turning to her. The Dybbuk started with lowly forms, insects and animals. Now it can inhabit children and soon any human. Sophie urges Casey to seek Rabbi Sendak, who can banish the spirit using a manuscript about Dybbuks. Casey visits a library to study the manuscript herself, finding numerous references to Dybbuks possessing people and animals. The next day, Casey brings the manuscript to Rabbi Sendak. He's skeptical about exorcisms and Dybbuks but agrees to translate the manuscript, knowing her life depends on it. Back home, Casey follows Sophie's instructions. She wears an amulet, gets rid of mirrors to stop the Dybbuk, and buries their shattered remains. Sophie mentioned bells next. They can signal the Dybbuk's presence, so Casey hangs them by windows and doors. Sophie warns her not to empathize with the Dybbuk. It's no longer human, just desperate to stay in our world, barred from heaven. It can't be killed, but can be banished back to its realm. The next day, Romy heads to Casey's but is stopped on the road by Maddie, who warns that helping Casey will cost her life. Casey tells Romy about the Dybbuk and begs her to stay away for her safety. But Romy refuses to abandon her friend. That night, Casey dreams of her mom turning into a monster. She wakes to the sound of bells and sees the Dybbuk on the lawn. That same night, Sophie wakes to a strange noise. The Dybbuk possesses a nursing home patient and attacks her. The next day, Casey and Romy visit the nursing home and learn what happened. A staff member hands Casey a letter from Sophie, who urges her not to give in to fear, lest she end up like her mother. Sophie warns that the Dybbuk will possess her friends to break and isolate her. That night, Rabbi Sendak translates the Dybbuk manuscript. Hearing a noise, he goes downstairs and sees the Dybbuk in a dog's body. Meanwhile, Casey talks with Romy, unsure of her next move. Romy hears the doorbell and goes to check. Casey spots the Dybbuk in a mirror and calls Mark, begging him to rush to Romy's house. But she's too late. The Dybbuk possessing Maddie kills Romy. The next day, Casey meets Sendak. He agrees to perform an exorcism but says they'll need Father Arthur Wind, an expert. Arthur stresses that faith is key to the ritual. Sophie's strong faith gave her the best shot at defeating the Dybbuk. Arthur suggests holding the ritual in the hospital where Casey's mom took her life, a place tied to her pain. Arthur brings 7 volunteers to assist. Sendak explains that 10 people must surround the possessed during the ritual. Casey lies on a gurney ready for the exorcism. During the ritual, the Dybbuk kills the volunteers, knocks out Sendak, and possesses Arthur. Mark and Casey try to escape the enraged spirit. Possessed Arthur chases them and attacks Mark. Mark kills Arthur, but the Dybbuk then possesses him. Casey flees, and a revived Sendak helps her. Together, they banish the Dybbuk, but Mark dies in the process. Soon after, Casey learns she's pregnant with twins. And that's where the movie ends. Cyrus Kritikos is a millionaire with a rather peculiar hobby. He collects ghosts. With the help of his psychic assistant, Dennis Rafkin, he traps them in glass cages and keeps them in his house. One stormy night at a creepy junkyard, Cyrus is preparing to capture the 12th ghost. Dennis can sense ghosts, read people's minds, and feel their emotions. So when he places a hand on Cyrus's shoulder, he accidentally learns about a huge stash of money hidden in Cyrus's house. Before the hunt begins, Cyrus's team spots a woman named Kalina Oritania and her partner, who are ghost liberators. They believe Cyrus is acting like a slaver and try everything to stop him. They also know why he's collecting these ghosts and warn him that without the 13th ghost and a special spell, his plan won't work. Dennis starts asking questions, as Cyrus has been hiding the true purpose of the ghost hunt from him. To keep his secret, Cyrus orders the hunt to begin. A truck appears, spraying blood everywhere, and a chilling spell is activated. Sensing the bait, an angry spirit shows up and starts killing Cyrus's men. After a fierce battle, the ghost is finally trapped in a cage, but in the process, Kalina's partner and Cyrus himself are killed. We then shift to an ordinary, close-knit family. Arthur Kritikos is a math teacher living with his 2 kids, Kathy and Bobby. Their nanny Maggie also lives with them. Arthur once had a happy family, but a sudden house fire changed everything. He lost his beloved wife and nearly all his possessions. Mounting debts and constant moves have worn the family down. But then, Cyrus's lawyer, Ben Moss, visits them and announces that they've inherited a mansion from their wealthy relative. Arthur is suspicious, as he hasn't spoken to his uncle since childhood. But with money tight, the family clings to hope and eagerly accepts the inheritance.
Jackpot.
That same day, they decide to check out the property and set off excitedly, guided by the lawyer, who clearly has something up his sleeve. Meanwhile, Kalina is preparing for a major operation. She gathers a ton of explosives and heads out. The family arrives at the house and bumps into Dennis, who's posing as maintenance staff. It's clear both he and Kalina are hiding something from the family. At first, they're not too bothered that the house is almost entirely made of glass, but when Arthur pulls out a unique key and turns it, the house's mechanisms spring to life, and the door opens. They step inside, amazed by the house's strange devices and glass walls covered in Latin inscriptions, with a weird moving floor in the main hall. Arthur's family explores the place with curiosity. Instead of focusing on how bizarre the house is, they're eager to move in as soon as possible. While the lawyer and Arthur go to sign some papers, Dennis heads downstairs, hoping to find the huge sum of money Cyrus owed him. There, he notices multiple glass cells, each separated by walls with Latin inscriptions. As he passes by, Dennis senses an evil presence. Soon, he puts on spectral glasses that allow people to see ghosts. Before him appear the spirits he and Cyrus once captured. Meanwhile, Arthur starts doubting whether he can afford to maintain such a house, but the lawyer assures him that his late uncle took care of everything and left him money. Suddenly, a panicked Dennis bursts in, trying to convince Arthur to leave the house he's about to claim. Moss calls Dennis crazy and says his words can't be trusted. Naturally, Arthur is confused and thinks it's all a bad joke. Then, Dennis suddenly feels ill. Taking advantage of the chaos, the lawyer sneaks to the basement, grabs a briefcase full of cash, and accidentally triggers a mechanism that seals the entrance and releases the ghosts one by one. Moss comes face to face with one of them. He tries to back away slowly, but a doorway slams shut, slicing him in half. Meanwhile, the family scatters throughout the house. Bobby finds a pair of spectral glasses, while Kathy picks out a room. She steps into a bathroom, unaware, without the glasses, that an evil spirit is nearby. Then, Arthur rushes in, saying they need to leave, but Maggie shows up and says Bobby's gone missing, forcing a change of plans. At that moment, Bobby wanders into the basement, hearing a voice he thinks is his sister's. Down there, he sees several ghosts and, in a panic, crashes into a wall. When he comes to, he spots the spirit of his mother, who warns him of danger.
Run, bitch! Run!
Then Cyrus's ghost appears and grabs the boy. Arthur tries to send the girls to the car while he searches for his son, but Dennis tells them they can't leave. The house is sealed. He explains that the Latin inscriptions on the glass walls keep the ghosts contained. Kathy laughs at him just like her father, not believing ghosts are real, but she'll soon learn otherwise as the family heads to the basement to find Bobby. Dennis initially refuses to help, but when Arthur offers him Cyrus's money, he reluctantly agrees. In the basement, they split up. Dennis goes with Maggie and shows her a ghost, then is shocked to find all the cells open and the ghosts gone. Arthur and Kathy find Bobby's toy and his glasses. When Kathy puts them on, she sees a ghost that immediately attacks her. Arthur rushes to save his daughter, though he can't see anything, but Kalina suddenly appears and helps them escape. She explains that this isn't a house, it's a complex machine powered by the energy of evil spirits. She plans to free the ghosts and asks Arthur for help, but he's not interested in ghost stories. He just wants to find his son. While they're talking, Kathy suddenly vanishes. Kalina promises to help him find his family if he helps her free the ghosts. At that moment, Dennis gets trapped in a cell with a ghost. He can't see it attacking, but Maggie tells him where and when to dodge, and just before the door closes, he manages to escape. They all regroup and head to the library. There, Arthur learns that his wife's spirit is also trapped here, and Dennis helped capture her. Kalina reassures him that he still has a chance to save his kids and free his wife. She explains again that this isn't a house but a machine called the Ocularis Infernum. The ghosts activate the machine, which allows someone to see into the past and future, granting immense power. Kalina tells Arthur his kids are in grave danger, and the only way to save them is to offer his own soul. If Arthur takes his place as the 13th ghost, his sacrifice of pure love will defeat the evil within the machine, shutting it down. Arthur can't think straight while his kids are in danger and is ready to sacrifice himself. But Dennis searches for another way out, and Kalina suggests one: blow up the house to disable the machine. Of course, it's unlikely anyone would survive, but they need to act fast as the machine enters its final phase. Arthur and Dennis head to the basement to find the kids, while Kalina and Maggie go to the control center to set the explosives. Suddenly, Cyrus appears and Kalina knocks Maggie out. It turns out Cyrus isn't a ghost. He faked his death to lure Arthur to the house, and Kalina is his lover. Meanwhile, a ghost attacks Arthur and Dennis, but they fend it off using a glass panel. Then, two more evil spirits surround them. To make up for his role, Dennis corners Arthur, shielding him with the glass, sacrificing his own life. Devastated, Arthur finally meets his wife's spirit and promises to save their kids. But when Cyrus activates a spell, all the ghosts vanish. Then, Cyrus brutally kills Kalina, crushing her between two walls, declaring that greatness requires sacrifice. Arthur finally finds his kids, who are at the heart of the machine, surrounded by the 12 ghosts. At that moment, his uncle appears, and Arthur quickly realizes he's not a ghost and attacks him. During the fight, Cyrus reveals that Arthur will become the 13th ghost, not to stop the machine as Kalina claimed, but to activate it. He's the missing piece, meant to sacrifice himself for love. At that moment, Maggie comes to and disrupts the machine's mechanism, freeing the ghosts, who turn on Cyrus for imprisoning them. In the end, they throw him into the machine, tearing him apart. Then Dennis's ghost appears and tells Arthur to go to his kids. Timing it perfectly, Arthur leaps and reaches his children. The house collapses completely, and the ghosts are finally set free. Fortunately, Arthur and his kids escape, and Dennis vanishes with a smile. Then, John appears, says goodbye to her family, and leaves with the other ghosts. And that's where the movie ends. The story begins with our main characters, Catherine and her colleague Ben. This duo has long been debunking religious miracles. Their latest case brings them to a monastery. The monastery people are falling ill and losing their minds, and the tomb of a local priest, buried 40 years ago, has mysteriously opened. Inside, they find his body completely untouched by decay. Near the tomb, Catherine notices a crack, and along with Ben, descends into the sewer system. There, they find a liquid resembling blood seeping from manholes in the ceiling. Climbing through one, they uncover a stash of toxic waste. It turns out that an earthquake caused these fumes to leak into the monastery's sewers, preserving the priest's body while making people sick and hallucinate. Later, Catherine shares this case with her students at Louisiana State University. After her lecture, she gets a call from Father Costigan, a familiar priest. He tells her that overnight, strange burn marks appeared on her face in all the photos he has from their joint trip to Africa. When pieced together, the photos form a sickle shape. But Catherine, unwilling to entertain talk of religious signs or revisit that trip, hangs up. Soon after, a math teacher named Doug from the town of Haven reaches out, referred to her after their river turned blood red 3 days ago. Doug explains that the locals believe this marks the start of the 10 Egyptian plagues from the Old Testament, and they blame a young girl named Lauren McConnell. On the day the river turned red, Lauren found her older brother's body in it. The townsfolk are convinced she killed him, triggering the terrifying prophecy described in the Book of Exodus. Catherine and Ben head to Haven, where they're met by a friendly pregnant woman named Isabel. She escorts them to a church where the town council is gathered. There, they meet Doug and the town's mayor, Bucks. Together with the mayor, they visit the river and confirm its blood-red color. A quick chemical analysis of the water yields troubling results. Catherine, Ben, and Doug set out to find the source of the contamination. Their search leads Catherine into the woods, where she suddenly spots a young girl. She chases her, but loses sight, and Doug finds Catherine explaining that it was Lauren who lives in isolation with her mother, Mandy. Doug tells Catherine that Lauren is the illegitimate daughter of a visiting priest who once passed through town. He shows her the ruins of a church and a crypt, remnants of Haven before it was devastated by storms. At that moment, frogs start falling from the sky onto Ben, signaling the second Egyptian plague. Catherine quickly explains this away, noting the river's pH levels are dangerously high. She also shares her theory about the red water with Doug as they head to his massive inherited home, where he offers Catherine and Ben separate rooms. That evening, as Doug prepares fish for his guests, the third Egyptian plague arrives, a swarm of gnats. Soon after, a local farmer named Jim calls, reporting strange behavior in his livestock. The trio heads to the farm, where an escaped rabid bull attacks their car. Jim's gunshot saves them from the bull. He explains that his entire herd has suddenly fallen ill and is dying, hinting at another Egyptian plague, the death of livestock. Ben, a devout believer, argues that so many events aligning with the Book of Exodus can't be mere coincidence. Catherine, the atheist, offers scientific explanations for each of the 10 Egyptian plagues described in the Old Testament. The locals, however, are convinced these are the plagues and that they're tied to the McConnell family, rumored to perform sacrificial rituals in their home. That night, Catherine spots a light near the house. She follows it to a cemetery where Doug is speaking to his wife's grave, who died of cancer. He offers her local wine. Catherine opens up, revealing she was once a Christian, ordained with a husband and daughter, but during a mission trip to Sudan, a drought led locals to blame the white visitors. A shaman killed her family as a sacrifice, and since then, Catherine has rejected faith in God. That night, Catherine dreams of an intimate moment with Doug. Later, in another dream, she's back in Africa, reliving her husband and daughter's deaths at the shaman's hands. Waking in the night, she goes to the kitchen and notices blood and sand on her feet. The next morning, Catherine visits the McConnell house and finds a hidden room marked with the sickle symbol Father Costigan mentioned. She catches Lauren there, silent, with bloody footprints. As Catherine tries to wipe them away, she sees flashes of Lauren's brother's death and the girl standing in the river. Mandy, Lauren's terrified mother, appears, asking if Catherine is trying to harm her daughter. When questioned about her son's death, Mandy says she couldn't save him in time. Meanwhile, Ben and Doug attend a town meeting where they notice all the local children have lice. The townsfolk, pointing to another plague, are certain the McConnells are to blame, accusing them of horrific rituals. The men meet Catherine at the morgue to examine Lauren's brother's body. They see the body looks mummified, as if it's been dead for over a year, with a sickle symbol carved into its lower back. Soon, test results confirm the river is filled with human blood. Meanwhile, the locals head to the McConnell house to confront Lauren. Desperate, Catherine calls Father Costigan, who is expecting her. He's been studying the sickle symbol and learned it belongs to an ancient cult that marks firstborns to spare them, sacrificing secondborn children at puberty until a child in Satan's image is born. Lauren. The plagues, he says, are Satan's work to protect her, not God's. Costigan believes Catherine, once ordained, is the angel destined to stop the cult. Then, his church catches fire and he dies. Meanwhile, Ben and Doug arrive at the town meeting. They see boils and sores on the devout townsfolk, marking another plague. The rest of the residents head to the McConnell house, but Catherine gets there first. She enters a room with the sickle symbol and finds Lauren in a cage, next to a site used for ritual sacrifices. Mandy, hiding there, tells Catherine she failed and then shoots herself. As the armed townsfolk arrive with Ben and Doug, another plague hits, a swarm of locusts. One resident aims to shoot Lauren, but she directs the swarm at the intruders. Catherine rushes into the house, Doug hides in the blood-red river, and Ben takes shelter in the church ruins crypt. The locusts disappear. Ben explores the crypt, finding bones of the cult's second-born children, and informs Catherine. Then he sees Lauren at the door. Catherine reaches the crypt and finds Ben dead. Doug arrives, but Catherine tells him to stay as she, armed with a knife, goes to stop Lauren. As they face each other, the ninth plague, Egyptian darkness, falls. Catherine hesitates to strike, unsure of Lauren's guilt. Lauren touches Catherine, showing her a vision. The cult tried to sacrifice Lauren in their basement, but she escaped to the river. Her brother attacked her, but his wound healed instantly. He turned to stone, and the river filled with blood. Why? Because Lauren is the angel of prophecy, capable of destroying the cult. The cult, it turns out, controls all of Haven, populated only by firstborns like Doug, who killed Ben in the crypt and leads the cult. His family blamed God for the storm that destroyed Old Haven, turning the town to Satan worship. Doug lured Catherine, an ordained skeptic, to kill Lauren, the angel. Catherine refuses, and the final plague, death of the firstborn, all of Haven's residents, unleashes a fiery rain from the sky. Doug tries to take Catherine with him, but the fire spares her, and she survives. Catherine leaves town with Lauren. In the car, Lauren says she senses a boy in Catherine's womb. That night at the cemetery, Doug drugged her with wine and assaulted her, leaving her pregnant. This boy, a second-born child of a cult member, is the prophesied child with Satan's eye. The movie kicks off with Professor Ackerman giving a history lecture. The students are bored out of their minds. One of them, Nelson Elliott, cracks up the class by flashing party photos on the screen. But when the professor turns around, he quickly switches back to the lecture slides. The students burst out laughing. Seeing what's got them going, Ackerman tells the troublemakers to stay after class. He chews out the trio, Anderson, Nelson, and Corey, for slacking off and acting up. He threatens to expel them, but gives them one last shot. They've got to write essays by the end of spring break. Instead of studying, the friends head to Florida. On the way, they accidentally hit an armadillo, splattering blood all over the windshield. The animal's owner, a hippie-looking guy, asks for a ride to make up for it. The teens brush him off and keep driving. Stopping at a gas station, they run into two hot girls with a guy. Corey walks up to their car and suggests meeting up in Florida. Anderson writes his number right on one of the girls' bare stomachs. The guys drive all night. Nelson decides to take a shortcut, and when the others wake up in the morning, they realize they're lost in the middle of nowhere. Wandering around, they end up in some run-down town. Suddenly, people start running toward their car from all directions, playing instruments and partying. The mayor, Buckman, welcomes them. That same day, the town's celebrating Courage and Glory Day. Corey wants to keep going since his brother's waiting in Florida, but spotting a cute girl and the car from the gas station, the guys decide to stay. A motorcycle pulls up, catching the townsfolk's attention. The riders, also trying to take a shortcut, ended up in this weird town too. Mayor Buckman's thrilled to have so many northern kids at their festival. He orders the guests to be put up in the hotel, and the rowdy crowd heads to the inn. The students are treated like VIPs. Malcolm and Leah, the motorcycle couple, stick around for the free food and drinks. Anderson, Nelson, and Corey hang out with some local hotties. Meanwhile, Mayor Buckman scolds his crew for letting a black guy, Malcolm, slip through. The mayor consoles himself that it'll all be over soon. They discuss who gets to take the blonde, Joey. Meanwhile, local musicians are already serenading under her window. Kat suggests to her friends that they quietly ditch this backwater town. Their talk is interrupted by Alexander Harper, who greets them and offers to show them the town's sights. Kat happily agrees, and before she leaves, Ricky gives her his lucky charm. Harper shows her the spot where his parents met, but Kat steers things toward flirting, hinting she's up for more. Anderson, Nelson, and Corey, meanwhile, help a local kid, Hucklebilly, catch a runaway cat. The kid invites them to play, but the students say no, too busy thinking about girls. Seeing the kids upset, they follow him anyway. Hucklebilly plans to lynch the cat and wants them to watch. Shocked, the students try to talk him out of it. Meanwhile, Kat and Harper get intimate in a hayloft. He blindfolds her, but when the blindfold comes off, Kat realizes her arms and legs are tied to horses. He gives the signal, and the animals bolt, tearing the poor girl apart. That evening, the innkeeper gathers all the guests for dinner. She hints that playful Kat is still off with Harper and suggests starting the meal without her. At dinner, Ricky grabs a piece of meat with a tattoo like the one on Kat's butt but doesn't notice and keeps eating. After dinner, Anderson stays alone with Joey. He spins some romantic nonsense and their chat turns into a kiss, but Nelson interrupts them. The scene shifts to the mayor who gathers his crew, Lester, Rufus, and Hucklebilly. He gives orders on what to do with the guests. The students party without a care. Anderson and Joey continue their date by a fireplace. Malcolm and Leah slip off to their room. Corey fools around with two local girls. Ricky and Rufus hang out, betting on push-ups. A half-naked maiden slips into Nelson's room. She seduces him and pours liquid down his throat. It's acid, instantly eating away his insides. The next morning, the festival continues. The mayor greets Anderson, Joey, Ricky, Corey, Leah, and Malcolm, inviting them to kick off the celebration. Worried, they ask Harper about Kat, but he says she left with Nelson. Granny Boone signals the start of the festival. She orders the men and women to split up. Meanwhile, at the slaughterhouse, butchers carve up the bodies of the killed students. Heads are stuck on pikes, and the rest is prepped for the festival feast. After the split, the town's men take Anderson, Ricky, and Malcolm to throw horseshoes, calling it a real man's game. Corey tags along with two hotties heading for a picnic. The girls start fooling around with each other, leaving him to just watch. Bummed out, he joins the other guys. The townsfolk offer the guests beer and start the horseshoe game. The targets: Nelson and Kat's heads draped in animal hides. Joey and Leah, meanwhile, bob for apples and barrels. Then they're dressed in local gowns. Ricky joins the women's group, while Joey goes looking for Anderson. During the dances, Leah's led under a giant bell. The crowd freezes, and Granny Boone releases the rope. Leah gets crushed flat. The crowd cheers, but Ricky's horrified and bolts. The laughing locals chase him. Rufus catches him and drags him to the mayor. The townsfolk laugh and clap. They skewer Ricky through from his backside to his mouth. Meanwhile, in the tavern over beers, Corey tells Anderson and Malcolm about the wild stuff the two cousins were doing in front of him. Joey joins them, worried about Kat's absence. On her way to the tavern, a local girl gave her Ricky's lucky charm. Anderson suggests sticking together. They make a plan. Anderson scouts the road, Malcolm looks for Leah, and Joey and Corey grab their stuff. Anderson says to act normal and not let on they're planning to leave. But before they can do anything, the mayor and Granny Boone show up with the townsfolk, blocking their way out of the tavern. The mayor warns them not to disappoint the locals and tells them to head to the square. The students go out, pretending they're staying for the barbecue while secretly moving forward with their plan. Anderson slips into the kitchen and spots blood. Lifting a dish cover, he sees it's just melted strawberries. Two men confront him. He apologizes for snooping and casually asks where their car is, saying he wants to dress up for the festival. They point him to the barn and he leaves. Meanwhile, Malcolm searches for Leah. He sees a girl in leather running off and, thinking it's her, follows. But the locals, led by the mayor, grab him and strap him to a table. Then they drop a concrete press, flattening him. Entering a room, Corey sees a half-dressed girl. She seduces him, not giving him a chance to think. As they kiss, she puts on metal jaws and starts tearing him apart. Anderson reaches the barn and sees their car's been wrecked. He spots Malcolm's motorcycle, but the keys are gone. Hucklebilly and the two cousins suddenly appear, shooting at him with a slingshot, and he passes out. When Anderson comes to, he's lying on a table as the main course. Joey's tied up in front of him. The mayor starts uncovering dishes on another table, revealing their friends' heads. The townsfolk are thrilled. The mayor offers Anderson a deal, gut Joey, and since he's got southern roots, he can stay in town. Anderson agrees. They untie him and hand him a cleaver. The crowd starts chanting. But he throws the weapon into the crowd, hitting Rufus. Taking advantage of the chaos, he unties Joey, knocks over a burning cauldron, and they run. The enraged mob surrounds them. The mayor orders everyone to stand down and hands Anderson a saber, challenging him to a duel. Anderson defends himself with a metal lid, blocking blow after blow. He manages to knock the saber from the mayor's hands, taking control. The men grapple as the crowd roars. Anderson rips off the mayor's eye patch, and a swarm of maggots spills out. He grabs a fork and holds it to the mayor's other eye. The mayor swears to let them go if Anderson spares him. The mayor keeps his word, giving the kids a motorcycle to leave. As they ride off, he mutters, "An eye for an eye." The next morning, the terrified teens burst into the nearest police station and spill everything that happened. The officer offers to drive out there with them. When they arrive, they find only an old cemetery. Anderson and Joey can't believe their eyes. The cop assures them no one's lived there for 150 years. Not wanting trouble, Anderson apologizes, and the officer leaves. The teens head home. They don't notice a wire stretched across the road and ride right through it. Hucklebilly gleefully carries off their severed heads. Ben and Tina are a young couple from New York who love traveling across Europe, hunting for haunted houses. They record their adventures and post videos on YouTube, hoping to blow up their channel and become famous. The guys explore an old building in Ukraine where a nanny killed several kids before taking her own life. After filming a ton of content, Ben suddenly vanishes and Tina starts freaking out. But turns out he was just messing with her. One day, they head to southwestern France to find a village submerged in an artificial lake. Right before they leave, Ben starts worrying that Tina can't hold her breath for more than 3 minutes. She calms him down, pointing out there's no need to hold their breath since they'll be diving with scuba gear. As usual, getting there isn't a smooth ride. They manage to get lost at first, but quickly figure out the right direction in some backwater town. When they arrive, they're super bummed to find out the lake is a popular tourist spot. In the end, with long faces, they decide to ditch their expedition. But Ben's still stressed because their last video was a huge hit, and regular abandoned houses won't cut it anymore. He thinks they need something way cooler. Meanwhile, Tina's secretly relieved they won't have to dive. She manages to convince Ben to just enjoy the lake and be regular tourists for once. A couple of minutes later, while buying drinks, Ben meets a local named Pierre, who tells him there's not much to see in this part of the lake, since the houses were destroyed before the flood. Then Pierre offers to show them a spot with a perfectly preserved submerged house. Tina's a bit nervous about it, but Ben's pumped and thrilled about the opportunity. On the way, Pierre tells them that about half a century ago, this area suffered from bad flooding, forcing them to relocate entire villages and deliberately flood them. Then he casually mentions they'll have to hike a couple of kilometers to reach that part of the lake. The couple's surprised, but grabs their gear and sets off through a dense forest. When they get there, Tina and Ben start checking their equipment. At that moment, Tina notices Pierre staring at her intensely. It creeps her out, so they hurry into the water, where Ben promises her that if this video becomes a hit with 1 million views, they'll definitely get married in Vegas afterward. Then the pair starts their dive. Ben launches a high-tech underwater drone that films in a high resolution. Their masks are equipped with audio devices, letting them talk to each other underwater. A few meters down, they spot their first find, a red car in really good condition. Then they dive deeper and come across a wide staircase leading down to some gates. Suddenly, their audio starts glitching, and all the fish disappear. A few minutes later, they notice a massive crypt belonging to the house's family. Ben's about to go inside, but Tina stops him, saying it's a bad omen. Ben just laughs at her superstition. Then they turn their attention to the main house, which, weirdly enough, is boarded up, including the windows and doors. Tina wonders why anyone would board up a house that's about to be flooded, but of course, there's no answer.
Wow.
They check out the building and spot an open window at the very top. They send their drone in first, then swim inside themselves. In the room, they find a ton of random stuff that, oddly, no one took with them. At one point, Tina hears a voice, but Ben insists it's probably just interference messing with their audio. As they explore the house, they come across a painting of the family: mom, dad, and 2 kids, a boy and a girl. The next open door leads them to a kid's room. Tina notices that everything in the house is surprisingly well preserved, considering it's been underwater for 50 years. They find a bunch of photos of the kids, and then Ben spots a human silhouette on his camera, lying in a bed. Tina thinks he's pranking her again, but when the lights and drone start malfunctioning, she gets genuinely scared. They keep exploring the house, and as they head down a staircase, they notice deep scratches on the front door, like someone was trapped inside. Suddenly, they hear piano music coming from the dining room. Ben sends the drone in, and it catches some movement, but the room's empty. Tina starts panicking, feeling something's off with the house. But Ben tries to stay calm, attempting to explain things logically. In another part of the house, there's a board covered with photos, posters, and news articles about missing kids. Then they enter the kitchen, where they find a door blocked by a large crucifix. When they open it, they discover a ton of film and video equipment, but to their horror, they also stumble upon 2 bodies, a man and a woman, chained to the ceiling in torture masks. Ben notices a pentagram on the floor and guesses they were chained up alive and left to die before the flood came. Weirdly, the bodies are in really good condition. In the next room, Ben finds preserved body parts. His patient snaps, and what they're seeing can't be explained logically anymore. So they quickly swim out of the torture chamber and head to the attic to get out of the house as fast as possible. But now the path they came through is blocked by a brick wall. Tina starts breathing heavily, and Ben tries to calm her down since panic makes her use up her air tank faster. Suddenly Tina spots someone, but Ben doesn't believe her and chalks it up to a panic attack. He suggests trying to find another way out, but it's useless. The windows are sealed shut. Soon, they spot a fish and follow it, hoping it'll lead them to an exit. But the fish brings them back to the torture chamber. Tina swims to a grate, trying to open it. Suddenly, the 2 bodies disappear, and Ben vanishes with them. Someone attacks Tina, but moments later, Ben comes to her rescue. He says he was there the whole time and didn't see anyone, and the bodies mysteriously reappear. Ben takes off their masks, and they realize these are the house's owners.
Surprise.
Out of nowhere, their eyes open, and they start moving, chasing the couple. Ben and Tina barely manage to shut the door on the living dead. In the dining room, they find a chimney and try to climb up, knowing it's their only shot. But soon, the shaft collapses, trapping them on different floors. Ben comes to in one of the rooms, where he finds a family tree with Pierre's picture on it. Turns out, the guy who showed them this place is the son of the Montagnac family. Then the Montagnac's daughter, Sarah, enters the room, forcing Ben to hide under the bed.
What a twist.
Meanwhile, after coming to, Tina is chased through the house by the family patriarch. She manages to find Ben in one of the rooms, but he's acting creepily calm. At this point, their air supply is running low, and they need to find a way out fast. But Ben starts talking nonsense. Tina tries to snap him out of it, but suddenly she feels something crawling under her suit. Ben tells her to just let the snake into her mouth, but she takes off her mask, and the snake vanishes. Possessed by Sarah's spirit, Ben leads Tina to the basement, where he shows her a hidden room. There, Tina learns that Pierre and his father kidnapped neighborhood kids and sacrificed them in satanic rituals. Eventually, the locals found out and took revenge. They stormed the mansion, killed the daughter first, then the mother and father. But Pierre managed to escape, and it seems he's been luring tourists to his family's mansion ever since to continue their bloody legacy. Sarah appears, and under her influence, Ben tries to convince Tina to join the family, but Tina bolts to a secret room where she finds a shaft leading outside. Ben catches up and tries to kill her, but she stabs him with a knife, and he finally snaps out of it. Before they can process what's happening, Sarah shows up and kills Ben. Then the whole family attacks Tina. At that moment, her oxygen runs out, so she ditches her tank, which lets her fight off the dead family and swim away. Tina escapes through the shaft back into the lake, desperately trying to reach the surface. But just below the water's surface, the air in her lungs runs out, and she drowns. At the end of the movie, after the credits, we see a scene where two girls are looking at the lake, accompanied by Pierre, who's brought his family's next victim. "1974. A woman melts wax and pours it into a mold for a mask. Nearby, her son quietly eats cereal. The father enters, dragging another boy, calling him a monster. They tie him to a chair, clearly something they do regularly. Fast forward 30 years. 6 teens are headed to the football game of the year. Carly is a young woman, joined by her boyfriend Wade, her best friend Paige, and Paige's boyfriend Blake, Carly's twin brother Nick, and Nick's friend Dalton. Blake finds a shortcut, but the road is closed. They take a detour and decide to camp out for the night just before reaching a nearby town. While resting, the group notices a foul smell coming from the woods. They assume it's a dead animal and brush it off, continuing to have fun. Later, a stranger in a pickup truck pulls up to their camp. The group asks him to turn off his headlights, but he ignores them. Nick throws a beer bottle at the truck, smashing a headlight. The truck finally drives off, and the friends decide to sleep, planning to wake early and continue their trip. Unbeknownst to them, someone films the group as they sleep. In the morning, Blake tries to wake everyone early to make the game. Dalton notices his camera is missing, but the others think he just lost it. The girls catch the bad smell again, and Carly decides to investigate its source. When Wade tries to start the car, he finds the fan belt is broken. Meanwhile, Carly slips down a hill and lands in a pit filled with roadkill. As she tries to climb out, she spots a human hand. Just then, a truck pulls up. The group thinks there's a person in the pit, but it turns out to be a wax mannequin's hand. Wade arranges for a stranger to drive him and Carly to the nearest town to buy a new belt. The rough-looking man agrees to take them to a gas station in a town called Ambrose. The rest of the group heads to the football game. After saying goodbye, Wade and Carly get in the stranger's truck. He introduces himself as Lester and stares at Carly uncomfortably. Feeling uneasy, they decide to walk the rest of the way to town. Meanwhile, Blake, Nick, Dalton, and Paige get stuck in traffic. Realizing they won't make the game, they turn back to set up camp again. Carly and Wade arrive in Ambrose and notice the streets are eerily empty. They can't find anyone at the gas station, and after a call from Paige saying the others are returning, the couple heads to a church to ask for help. They realize a funeral is happening. A man named Bo approaches, saying he runs the gas station but is busy with the funeral and can't help right now. He tells them to meet him at the station in 30 minutes. To kill time, the couple visits the House of Wax, a museum entirely made of wax. They're amazed by the lifelike sculptures. Carly learns they were created by someone named Vincent. They spot the same child-sized chairs from the opening scene. Carly notices a man outside, so they leave and head back to the gas station. Bo soon arrives and says he has the belt and they need at his house. They ask about the House of Wax, and Bo explains it was once a local attraction owned by a woman named Trudy, whose son was Vincent. Trudy died of a serious illness, and her husband Victor, a local doctor, took his own life after failing to save her. Their sons ended up in foster care, and the House of Wax was abandoned. Wade asks to use the bathroom, leaving Carly to wait in Bo's truck. Meanwhile, Nick and Dalton head to town to find their friends. Wade explores Bo's house and confirms it belonged to Trudy and Victor. Carly realizes Bo's truck is the same one that visited their camp the previous night. She honks the horn to warn Wade, but the house goes dark, and Wade finds himself locked in a room. A stranger emerges from the floor and stabs Wade with scissors. Wade fights back, but is stabbed in the chest multiple times and passes out. Bo steps outside, but Carly locks herself in his truck, showing she doesn't trust him. He smashes the window, but she starts the truck and drives off briefly before escaping through the back. Meanwhile, the stranger drags Wade to an underground room, strips him, and injects him with a drug that paralyzes him. The stranger stitches his wounds, removes his body hair, ties him to a chair, and sprays him with molten wax. Carly runs to the church for help, but is horrified to find everyone inside is a wax figure. She notices a tape recorder playing, revealing the funeral is for Trudy Sinclair. When she accidentally breaks a statue's arm, she sees flesh and bone inside. Bo enters the church and quickly finds her. She tries to escape, but he grabs her. Nick and Dalton arrive in town. Bo takes Carly to the gas station's basement, ties her to a chair, and threatens to kill her if she makes noise. Nick and Dalton find the gas station empty and split up to search for their friends. Bo glues Carly's lips shut to keep her quiet. He then lies to Nick, saying his friends were never there. Nick, suspicious, keeps pressing him. Carly tries to get her brother's attention, but Bo cuts off the tip of her finger, pretending to tie his shoelaces. She frees her mouth and screams just as Bo attacks Nick. A fight breaks out, and Nick locks himself in the gas station, finds Carly, and frees her. Dalton enters the House of Wax and finds Wade at a piano, now a wax figure. Wade is still alive but can't move. Dalton tries to help, but a masked figure attacks him, pushes him down the stairs, and decapitates him. Carly and Nick search for their friends, realizing the town is filled only with wax figures. The scene shifts to Paige and Blake, who are trying to spend time alone at the camp. Suddenly, the music stops and Blake goes to check it out. A masked figure appears in the tent and attacks Paige. She runs outside, finds Blake dead, and hides in a warehouse. The killer finds her and kills her instantly with a spear through the head. Carly and Nick break into a hunting store and grab a crossbow. Bo finds them, forcing them to flee and hide in a movie theater. Bo soon tracks down Carly and tries to shoot her, but misses. He chases her, but Nick ambushes him, shooting him in the chest with the crossbow. Thinking Bo is dead, they take his shotgun, which turns out to be empty, and leave. Nick and Carly head to Bo's house to find their friends. Carly finds newspaper clippings revealing that Vincent and Bo were conjoined twins, separated by their father in surgery that left Vincent's face disfigured. Bo suddenly returns, followed by Vincent. It's revealed Bo was the troubled child constantly tied to a chair. Carly and Nick find a tunnel leading to the House of Wax. The twins turn on the basement lights, signaling their presence. In the house, the siblings find Dalton's wax-covered body. Not realizing he's dead, they accidentally break off his head. Vincent attacks and a fire starts in the basement during the fight. As they try to escape, they find Wade's body. Bo attacks again as the wax house begins to melt around them. Bo nearly kills Nick, but Carly saves him by beating Bo to death with a bat. Vincent, seeing his brother dead, chases Carly upstairs to avenge him. He bursts into her hiding spot and attacks with a knife. Nick arrives, tackles Vincent, and rips off his mask. Together, they overpower Vincent. They fall to the floor below and find the exit blocked. The siblings dig through a wall and escape the burning house just in time. The next day, police arrive in town. Carly asks the sheriff why no one knew what was happening here. He explains Ambrose was abandoned 10 years ago, and the bodies found were likely lured to the town. In the ambulance, Nick reveals he stole Dalton's camera, which was bagged as evidence. They learn the family had not 2 sons, but 3. At that moment, Carly sees Lester smiling and waving goodbye. And that's where the film ends.